We've been talking about low carb sa maraming aspects when it comes to healing. Marami na testimonial when it comes to reversing their diabetes. Marami na rin bumaba yung kanilang blood pressure. Kahit pa noon, nasa dalawa, tatlo, or apat na gamot na sila after doing low carb the proper way, the guided way, in few months time up to years for some, na-reverse din nila ito. So, hindi lang po sa diabetes, hypertension, and allergies yung application ng low carb. In fact, one of my mentors sa low carb and fasting na community here in the Philippines, someone that I look up to talaga when it comes to his own research. Kahit pa doktor siya, he still consider himself as a citizen scientist because the learnings na nakuha niya sa low carb nutrition and fasting are also outside of our typical medical curriculum. Pareho po kami na natuto ng low carb and fasting on our own. And now, I am so happy and proud na siya mismo, he is also applying it sa kanyang specialty practice. So, we have our very own low carb orthopedic surgeon, mainly focusing on sports medicine, at malalaman natin ang iba't ibang klase ng arthritis, na lahat ba ng arthritis ay kailangan operahan? Alam nyo ba na meron palang isang klase ng arthritis na hindi kailangan operahan, but ito ay dahil sa ating mga kinakain and are usually misdiagnosed na other kind of arthritis. And of course, weight loss is still part of that, and why weight loss is important or not so important. Ano nga ba talaga? Pag-uusapan natin yan with our very own. Let's all welcome our low carb but more on fasting doctor, fasting physician, Dr. Iggy Agbayani. Hello po, sir. There will just be a few lag lang with our internet connection, but I know Doc Iggy will be there. So come to our studio lang po as soon as you can. So, Doc Iggy, sa mga hindi pa nakakilala kay Doc Iggy, he is one of the first doctors na naging very loud and outspoken in this way of life. We've been friends pre-pandemic. I am so lucky and blessed na before pa magsarado yung borders, we were able to have dinner together with my sister before, and it was an overwhelming day for us to meet na finally nagkakita na kami. We've just been communicating online then, and we know our own struggles kasi hindi po ganon kadali to be outspoken, to be loud when it comes to nutrition sa aming practice. In typical medical practice, we don't usually focus more on nutrition because our training is largely focusing on medicine, sa gamot. Yun nga sabi nila na merong akong kitang parang meme. Para lang siyang joke na kung ang doktor mo daw ay yung binibigay sa'yo ay puro lang gamot at walang sinasabing kahit ano, then baka hindi yan doktor, baka daw drug dealer yan. But of course, we know that was just a joke. So, let's add Doc Iggy. Hello, Doc! Kamusta po?
Hi. Hello. Sorry, medyo weak ang signal.
Okay, sir. No problem. Okay lang. But your connection now is better. So, ano po, I already introduced you and a little background sa ating history, how we've been together, and yun nga, no, Doc Iggy is also one of those na nag-come up ng safe list in Tagalog. And meron ako nakitang binibigay mo ata sa mga pasyente mo noon na for them to easily follow ano yung kakainin nila after they come and visit you, and ano naman yung kailangan nilang ipagbabawal talaga. So, with your specialty as an orthopedic surgeon, usually opera ng opera, kung iisipin natin, sir, before the discovery of low carb and fasting, gaano karampant yung surgeries mo before as compared now? As compared nung nag-low carb ka na?
Yeah, actually it's changed the way I diagnose, the way I treat. So nag-lessen talaga yung surgery.
Mm.
And the options, of course, became bigger. So there is the option of we try to change your diet, your lifestyle before we try surgery. And unfortunately or fortunately, it works. So from the point of view of the orthopedic surgeon, parang syempre gusto namin mag-opera.
Mm.
Malungkot yung ibang orthopedic surgeon na nag-work siya. That's less in the income. But to me, hindi syempre yun naman goal ko eh. My goal is to treat the patient the best way possible. And I think the best way is really to treat the root cause.
Mm. Mm. And we can see now, I think we both agree na as much as malalim pakinggan yung root cause, but actually, it's just as basic as what we eat on a day-to-day basis. Changes lang on how we eat and when we eat can already do so much. What's your usual, typical advice po sa mga dumadating sa inyo na maraming signs of inflammation?
Yes, of course, ang strategy is always to know the patient kasi it's not the kahon eh.
Ah, okay.
Every patient have a sort of a difference, but the general principle is that we're just eating too much carbs. Let's face it. It's the most basic, simple rule. Try to lessen your sugars or processed carbs.
Mm. Yeah. Those are just simple, pero din yun din nga, if you don't have the right mindset, hindi din siya ganon kadali i-let go. Pero sir, for those na hindi pa ganon kabihasa sa ating lifestyle and are always asking, because you always mention it, ano ba yung inflammation? Ano ba talaga yung, kapag sinasabi nating inflammation, how can we explain it to layman na yes, you already have signs of inflammation?
Ang inflammation kasi is our body's reaction to injury, to illness, to ischemia, or anything that was cause stress to our tissues would lead to inflammation. And the reason for that is also it's one of those things that would trigger repair. So in a way, it's both a double-edged sword na masama pag meron siya, pero actually kailangan mo rin in a way. So the problem is kung the cause is not addressed, kain ka pa rin ng kain ng sugars, hindi tuloy-tuloy yung inflammation, you never really get to repair well enough or something like that. So yun ang dapat natin ma-realize. Inflammation is a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing.
Yes, because without inflammation, ibig sabihin your body's capacity to respond to stress is also low. Kaya if there's no inflammation as in there's no inflammation in time sana na merong supposedly merong expected inflammatory response. Like for example, na nabangga ka and then supposedly it will swell, it will stop the bleeding. It's all part of the inflammatory cascade. But if you don't have all those, pwedeng-pwede na walang inflammatory response. So the inflammatory response, pwede na hindi magsarado yung blood vessels. So you can die from profuse bleeding, and if walang inflammatory response, kung merong nakapuntang bacteria sa sugat mo, it can easily spread all over your body. But if there's inflammatory response to block them, to just stop them, na hanggang doon lang sila, so it can be contained in that area. So it's going to be just a localized inflammation. However, if it's also too much, then anything too much is never good. So, yung nangyayari when we keep on eating all of these inflammatory foods, yung katawan natin, hindi na siya nagsastop kung kailan siya magsastop. So, inflammatory cascade, ang inflammation, 5 yan eh. Let me see if I can recall. So, edema, so that is tumor. So, and we have rubor, that's redness, so that's increased blood flow. And we also have calor, so heat generation, so it's resulting to warmth. And then dolor, so dolor is pain, and I always forgot the last one. Ano nga yung last one, sir? If you can
Diba,
remember.
rubor ba? Rubor?
Rubor. Yeah. Loss of function. Okay, loss of function. Hindi na pala siya part ng mga dolor at rubor at calor. So, it's loss of function. So, kapag meron ng ganyan, so nai-impede na yung typical functioning, then that is inflammation. Sir, ano ba yung mga clinical symptoms ng inflammation para madaling maintindihan? Kasi they might not know na meron nang nangyaring ganyan sa kanilang katawan. Clinical symptoms, manifestations na masasabi natin that's already a sign of inflammation.
Yeah, the most obvious is swelling. But
Mm.
will be some cases na hindi natin makita yung swelling kasi nasa loob.
Mm.
So the other one is pain.
Pain. Mm.
So these two markers are, to me, the most important things. Kasi, like for example, yung rotator cuff natin, syempre nakatago yun. Hindi mo nakikita nagsiswell.
Mm.
Yung frozen shoulder, those are inflammations. We don't see it swell. Even sa ENT, yung throat, if your
Yeah.
tonsils swell up, you don't see it. But there's
Mm.
pain. Uh,
Yes.
and sa orthopedics, there's limitation of motion.
Mm.
And most of these cannot just be relieved by changing position.
Mm.
Oftentimes, continue sila. Hindi siya next day wala, tapos biglang sa afternoon babalik. Hindi siya ganun. It's something na will take time to arrive. Sometimes gradual yung pagdating and then gradual din ang pag-alis.
Yeah. So, out of the many symptoms of inflammation, no, yun yung dalawang pinaka-evident nga. May swelling, may pamamaga, and then if there is pain. Oftentimes, people seek medical consultation if there is pain. But tayong mga Pinoy, we are really people of sacrificers, no? So, parati nating iniindang yung sakit. Not until it's too much. Hindi talaga tayo. We will never ask for help. So, that is why many are suffering from many kinds of inflammation na hindi nakikita, hindi na a-address. And before we know it, sometimes it's already too late. So pain is the typical manifestation of inflammation. If you are experiencing back pains, knee pains, joint pains, headache, migraine, headache, pananakit ng mata na hindi maintindihan, biglang sumasakit yung lalamunan, or with certain movements ay hindi mo ito magalaw because it's causing pain, then that is inflammation. However, inflammation, again, hindi lang siya about pain lang. It can also be loss of function. So the fact na kahit walang sakit yung paa mo, pero namamanhid, you cannot feel anything, then that could still be a sign of inflammation. And that inflammation might go worse. It could be na yung mga nerves mo ay yun na talaga yung nada-damage. Kaya not experiencing pain at all could also be a sign of inflammation. Now, sir, going back to your specialty, sports medicine. Kasi sinasabi that as long as you are physically active, you can eat as many rice, as many carbs, as many sugar, kasi mabiburn mo naman yan. So you, as a sport medicine practitioner, I'm sure you are dealing with a lot of elite athletes na nagkaroon ng injury, na nagkaroon ng trauma. And then, how do you think it helped you, or did it do any changes when it comes to nutrition? Meron bang pagkakaiba ang healing, ang function ng isang athletic person when it comes to their diet? May influence ba or wala naman masyado?
Oh, ang laki. Ang laki ng influence. I still believe in the saying that you cannot outrun a bad diet.
Okay.
So that to me is always a reminder to some athletes who think they can eat whatever they want simply because they exercise hard. But the thing is, it's poison. Even though you exercise, the exercise is just a buffer. You're still taking some kind of poison. At the same time, right now, ang aking inclination, hindi rin pwedeng diet lang.
Yeah.
Siyempre, you need to exercise to improve or to fight off even atrophy. No? Lalo na sa, even among the elderly, that's a problem. We think if the elderly, we just, mami, mag-diet ka lang. Pero huwag ka magbubuhat, huwag ka mag-exercise. No, that's wrong. Even my elderly patients, ma'am, kahit po na 85 na kayo, kailangan mag-igib pa rin kayo ng tubig. Yeah, I still say that. I know it sounds funny. And that culturally, we do not want the elderly to exercise. It is still important. But going back to that just because you exercise, it doesn't mean you can do anything. And I've seen many athletes, my patients, who because they step up their activity, they become varsity, they practice every day. then they think they can eat soft drinks. They can drink soft drinks. They can eat all the carbs they want because they believe in concept na carb loading. But
Mm.
carb loading is applicable to certain things, not all. And
Mm.
certainly there are carbs that are better off than others.
Mm.
Malalim na discussion yan. Ang haba, very detailed. But in general, you want carbs if you want explosive activities. You want fats if you want the marathon, ultra marathon types of activities.
Mm.
That's quite a general rule. But we should not actually take yung mga yung like honey, or we always think that's healthy, or high fructose corn syrup. And I see a lot of my patients who are, try something. I feel strong, doc, when I take honey or when I drink Gatorade or something. Oh, I don't, sorry na mention ko ah.
That's okay, sir. Hindi naman nila
But
sila nakikinig dito.
mga, mga sweet drinks. In general, I would prefer that they don't take sweet drinks, but take the better kinds of carbs.
Yeah. So better kinds of carbs could be complex carbohydrates, but as much as possible and coming from real whole foods, those can be accommodated again by athletes, by those who are physically active. And then even that has its own limit. Kasi we cannot really know kung gaano talaga yung impact ng insulin sa kada tao. Yes, the glucose can be burned, the glucose can be utilized, but the insulin na effect sa katawan is also another story. I've recalled one young athlete, cousin ng friend ko. He was an athlete ever since elementary. And by the time na he was 17, he was already diagnosed with osteosarcoma. So parang nagkaroon siya ng bone tumor in the knee, in the lower extremity. And if I ask, ano ang diet niya? Hindi siya nagso-soft drinks, hindi siya nagsi-sweets, but every time he eats, it's bukid ng rice. And halos hindi kumakain masyado ng ulam. Yung kanin niya in a day, baka kulang yung 1 kilo ng kanin just for him. 1 kilo ng raw rice just for him alone. Ganon karami yung kanilang kinakain.
But alam mo, pwedeng ano yun, pesticide din.
Oh,
And have
okay.
found in our
Yung
the way we
glyphosate
farm,
na study ngayon,
the way
sir,
we
no?
farm, the way we farm things nowadays is
Oh,
not your classic farming. We use lots of pesticides, chemicals.
yeah,
So
I
they
think
could
I
be
read
solved,
recent
diba?
article about it. Hmm.
Diba? So yun lang ano. So we always think na as long as it's a plant, it's safe. Not
Mm,
so. No?
mm,
Plants have a way to defend themselves.
mm.
The farmers to protect the plants with pesticides. It
Mm.
could get into your diet. So sometimes there's beauty in variety. You have to change your diet once in a while to more different kinds of foods.
Yes. So, moving on to our next topic, sir, the arthritis. Since na-mention mo na yung plants, no? I think it is one of those things talaga na medyo nagugulat yung iba. Kasi nga, there are carbohydrates that are somewhat allowed under low carb because mababa yung kanilang net carbohydrates. These are mostly the green leafy vegetables, yung mga pinaka-typical, the healthiest kind. Pero what's the catch? Ano ang relationship nito with arthritis based on your experience, sir?
There's this thing about oxalates. Oxalates exist mostly in plants. Oxalates are, have you heard of yung mga calcium oxalates yung sa kidney stones? They can actually form in our joints. They can form in our tendons, even affect our muscles. So the way it is, oxalates are the defense mechanism of plants, especially mga dark green leafy vegetables, that were designed to paralyze an insect. But
Mm.
siyempre, kasi maliit siya, kumain siya ng isang malaking, para siya nag-buffet ng vegetables, di ba? So it will freeze him. But some people actually eat that way. They eat like buffet of vegetables every day, and it could affect their joints. These are specifically more to oxalate formers. Not everyone is an oxalate former, but there are quite a number of people who are oxalate formers. Another one is yung gluten. Gluten, as you can find it in wheat, it can cause inflammation sa gut natin. So remember that plants cannot run. So they have to find a way or design a way to fight the things that eat them. And unfortunately, it's these things. So we have to be careful how we cook them, how much we eat, etc.
Yan, kasi sobrang dami na bakit daw nung nag-low carb sila, gumanda na yung kanilang pakiramdam, gumanda na yung kanilang laboratory values, nag-weight loss na sila, which we will talk about more in a short while. But yun nga, yung arthritis daw nila parang mas lumala. But not everyone, of course, and that could explain it. It could be oxalate. Baka nasobrahan kayo sa pinagkakain yung kangkong, sa pinagkakain yung ampalaya, and all other green, very, very dark and green leafy vegetables. So, hindi rin lahat oxalate formers, oxalate stone formers, hindi lahat sensitive to it. So that's why we really have to tailor fit what is safer for you, because we may have a JGC Rojo food list, we have a safe list na general are low carb, but it's not a one size fit all. Yun yung sabi ni Doc Iggy, no? Hindi ito dekahon. Lahat tayo iba-iba. There is this general guidelines of doing low carb, but the sub part of that, which is what kind of low carb, will differ from person to person, depending, of course, in your age, on your own metabolism. Your genetics can also play a role, your physical activity. So maraming factors yan. So that's why we are trying to educate you as much as we can. Sir, can you tell us lang one of those stories na sinabi na akala natin, ano nga yung joint na inoperahan mo and you were surprised to see the crystals inside, na akala ng iba is rheumatoid arthritis, but to your surprise, anong klaseng stones, anong klaseng crystals yung namuo sa mga joints on your patients?
Ayun yung mga sometimes I see urate crystals,
Mm.
the joints. In some patients, I see yung tinatawag na uric acid, di ba? We find it. Now, there's a thing about uric acid. We always think that uric acid is the real cause of pain.
Yeah.
Actually, hindi eh. Yung inflammation ang nagko-cause ng pain.
Mhm.
Uric acid is a secondary marker. What do I mean by that? Hindi mismo yung uric acid, but it is a marker that you are taking in something too much that also causes inflammation.
Mm.
So, to understand it better, if you think about uric acid, what is it? It's actually an oxidant.
Mm. Yeah.
It's an antioxidant.
Mm.
So it's like a vitamin. But
Mm.
our doctors, we do our best to lower our uric acid. But in fact, to oxidative stress, our liver will produce uric acid because it's being poisoned by fructose. And the uric acid is so yes, I see it in some joints na hindi naman painful. I would just do an arthroscopy for an AC up there and I find crystals, and yet there's no pain. So there's this thing about observation, experience that it has changed my mind, changed the concept of understanding uric acid. And there will be cases naman, ang baba-baba ng uric acid, walang pain. Ito naman, ang taas ng pain. So there's no direct correlation for me.
Yeah.
Uric acid. It's not simple decahon rate.
Yes. I couldn't agree more. In our LCF masterclass, we discussed one of those would be hyperuricemia. And one thing we emphasize there is hyperuricemia alone is hindi talaga siya yung kailangan natin katakutan. Even if you will search the definition of hyperuricemia, kung ano ito, it's just a basic elevation. Mas mataas yan lang yung level ng uric acid mo compared to the general public. And kung anong nakakatakot dito, this will just tell you na those person will have higher risk of developing hyperuricemia with inflammation, like ang pagkakaroon nga ng arthritis, pagkakaroon ng kidney stones related to urate crystals. But again, these things happen with both, not just hyperuricemia, but with inflammation. But without inflammation alone, hyperuricemia can just stay there as long as it can. But yes, tama si Doc Iggy yung sinabi niya, it's telling you something. Although it's not dangerous per se alone, but it's also something that you don't need as an extra. So it's just extra that is there. It can be recycled, your body can reuse it. And those are the things that makes me really love fasting more. Because when you fast, it's really like the magic pill talaga. It balances out whatever na mga imperfections that we do in our diet, just like our exposure to chemicals na hindi na natin, of course, we no longer eat farm to table, so hindi talaga natin alam what happened to all of those food, kahit pa whole food sila, kahit pa low carb sila, but you don't know kung anong pinagdaanan nila. So we can never really fully escape yung mga toxins, kumbaga, habang tayo ay nabubuhay. But that's the beauty of fasting as well. So before we proceed with our weight loss, Doc Iggy, what can you say about the amazing benefits of fasting, like on your experience as a doctor and also sa sarili nyo mismo?
Okay, fasting I think is a little better than just keto. But one of the goals, they have a common goal, ketosis. They try to get you into ketosis. But fasting has a certain advantage of stimulating hormones. So that's why I often prefer fasting over a keto diet. No, but I do practice both. But for example, I cannot fast. I would go strict keto diet. But if I can fast, I can give in a little more to carbs. Kasi siyempre may times na gano'n. You're invited to a buffet or a party where there's cake. I would fast. So I use both. But I think that in terms of science, in terms of yung mga hormonal benefit, mas maganda ang fasting. And to me, it's most socially doable. Because, for example, I often eat one meal a day. When I get home, I don't tell them that I won't eat rice, I won't eat this. Sabi ko, I need to eat quite a lot kasi 3 meals yung kakainin ko in that meal. So I'm more or less, I look like I'm one of them. Di ba? Because I seems to be eating everything. But the advantage of fasting is there. If you've seen the studies, it shows that nag-elevate kayong growth hormones. It stops our muscle from degrading. It stimulates our androgen. So these are you just don't get with just keto diet, which fasting can do. Di ba? May kasabihan na stay hungry. In a way, that's how you stimulate yung strength natin.
Yeah, that something that I cannot agree more, because yun nga, as you know, I started fasting first before low carb. And the reason behind why fasting will improve your circadian rhythm, your hormonal imbalances will be corrected with fasting, because based on our evolution, fasting is very natural para sa atin. Okay?
Correct.
And as much as low carb is also natural for us, kasi yun yung nakasanayan natin ng ating genetics. Kasi noon, wala pa namang ekta-ektaryang palayan. Wala pang ekta-ektaryang mais and other wheat products, grains. Wala pang fruit na plantation na available. Wala pang processed foods, walang cereals, walang soft drinks. So that's why yung nakasanayan talaga ng katawan natin as hunter-gatherers is actually low carb. Pero bakit hindi pwedeng low carb lang? Kasi as much as low carb is the typical diet na kinakain nila, hindi sila araw-araw nakakakain. Because it's just as simple as hindi yun available. You have to work hard for your food. Kailangan mo pang mangaso, kailangan mo pang mag-hunt, kailangan mo pang mangisda. And there will be days talaga na wala silang mahanap na pagkain. So that's why it is good and important to stay low carb when you can. But in times na feeling mo kaya mong mag-fasting, that can even give you the boost na kailangan mo, and you just don't know. Baka yung missing piece when it comes to your healing. Kasi incorporation of fasting in your life in a week or in every month will at least give you that natural balance. It will give your body the opportunity na makorek yung kanyang mga previous na mga naiimbak na ng mga toxins sa katawan. That is why Doc Iggy and me, we both agree so much on fasting na nung nag-dinner kami noon, that was our first meal. It was mad. So we really had a good time. I think it was Chinese food na na pareho pa kaming umorder ng, I think, ng gulay that time because we thought the other is eating gulay, but we ended up leaving the vegetable alone at yung puro karne lang yung kinain namin because yes, we were both largely carnivores, and I think that's how we really eat as humans, supposedly. Don't you
Yeah,
agree, Doc?
Dr. Grace, I'll explain something that Dr. Grace is doing. She's
Okay.
doing all evolutionary evidence. Oh, that's why we are eating this way. And that is perfect because that's the only way you can really understand why these things work. Uh, if we did not become stronger as we become more hungry, we would have died long many years ago. Wala nang human species. We actually become stronger for a certain period of time when we become hungry. That's a natural response kasi hungry nga eh. So our body, lahat ng species na lumakas lalo na nung naging hungry, were survivors. And that is the human species. So things like that. Ano? But even sometimes there's an advantage to finding carbs then. Because talaga naman nasa nature din yan. And once in a while, let's say if you really have to run very fast, run away from a lion, and you can just grab a few cherries or berries from the trees. That's an explosive energy source.
Yes.
So things like those are great to explain by evolution. And fasting is, I think, is an evolution of Arthritis. But religion, a lot of people here are, have experienced fasting in their religion. One of the most popular one is the Islamic practice of Ramadan. But when I asked most of my friends who are Muslim, I counted the hours. It's 14 hours. Sabi ko, medyo bitin. Kaya hindi ko eat. For example, they would fast at 4, but they would eat at 3 a.m. and then fast at 4. And then immediately eat on the 14th hour. Kaya parang sabi ko, if they just corrected by 3 more hours, ang laki ng benefits of millions of Muslim friends of ours.
Yes, Doc. And to think, we've seen benefit of fasting in 16 hours, in 18 hours, but even just the 14 hours, actually, there is a study na it actually even improved. So 14 hours of fasting, even if it's not so much, but it already gave changes, especially in lowering the inflammatory markers, as compared to none, as compared sa wala talaga. And to think these Ramadan fasting, they are breaking it with fruits, with bread, with whatever that is there. So you can just imagine kung gaano pa kaya kaganda yung kanilang blood results kung they did it low carb way.
They end it with that, but they also start it with that.
Oh, and that's why
That's
siguro it
the,
cannot be sustained. That's why it's so hard to fast longer, because fasting, if you've eaten carbs and you are a glucose burner, puro sugar yung kinakain mo, doing 12 hours is already a struggle. That's why the best way to do it is doing low carb and fasting altogether, because it's a mutual benefit na sinusupplement pa ng isa. The benefits that you've got with low carb, magpapatuloy ng fasting, and the benefits of fasting that you got, autophagy, cellular regeneration, repair, ay magpapatuloy din the moment you ate, even you eaten na, kahit nag-break na kayo ng fast, with the right nutrient-dense na low-carb nutrition. So, Doc Iggy, before we and discuss muna natin yung last part natin, weight loss in low carb. Gaano ba ito ka-importante? What's the implication of weight loss for those who are morbidly obese? And bakit din hindi rin kailangan mag-worry yung iba na medyo matagal naglo-lose ng weight?
kasi in my practice, I see lots of diabetics. And these people are usually in their 40s or 50s. So my problem is how to stop them from losing weight too fast.
Oh.
That has become my problem nowadays. Not really yung difficulty of losing weight. Kasi, when you are sick, you're really motivated to try to lose weight. But I always emphasize that what I'm trying to do is not to make them look better or look thinner. or just lose weight. I'm happy with their weight. I just need them to lower their sugar and increase their proteins and fats. And that alone will fix their inflammation. That alone will fix their diabetes without weight loss. And I find that people who change their goals to weight loss will tend to rebound. This is something that we should also emphasize kasi we're so happy with weight loss eh. In the young, madali kasi. You lose weight very fast, you don't lose your muscles. But in the elderly, medyo diabetics, the sick, those with fatty liver, when they lose weight, they lose muscle. And it's hard to gain the muscle when you've lost that much weight and you're sick. So I always temper it as well na kung pwede, dagdagan nyo rin ang exercise. And do not under-calorie too much. Shifting your diet already from less carbs to more fats and proteins will actually automatically make you lose weight, but without lowering the calories. So yun lang sa akin yung may practice kasi. Orthopedic surgeon and sports medicine, yun yung mga nakikita ko.
Yes, I think that's a very good emphasis. Yes, marami sa mga mommies natin na nagpa-follow ng page are experiencing the same. That's why we dedicated a lot of our talks also on muscle building, on preventing too much weight loss. But of course, I'm so happy that you emphasize that. Na our goal first is actually healing. Okay? It's healing, and then the physical na appearance is just secondary. Once you've healed, you can focus on beautification. That is why my specialty, aside from low carb and fasting and ENT, is actually plastic surgery. So yeah, and beautification, which is another part, another story for another time. But the most important part here is you don't need to focus and worry too much just by looking at your weight, just by looking at your scale. If you will just depend everything sa timbangan mo, most likely hindi ka talaga magiging successful in this way of life because your gauge, your measurement of success is not right to begin with. So, Doc Iggy, when it comes to gauges of success, other than weight, ano ba yung better gauges of success? Yung tinatawag nating non-scale victories.
Of course, yung ating health parameters like blood sugar is there. Yung HbA1c, I tend to trust HbA1c. Although FBS is okay, also okay as long as you don't exceed 6 hours. So, unfortunately, the labs are telling everyone that it should be 10 to 12 hours of fasting, which is wrong. Again, the other one is waistline.
Okay.
Kasi there's already a study on that it's better than yung weight. Kasi you may have a very muscular big person with a very small waist who's very healthy, but he's overweight. So,
Yes.
so to me, yung tinatawag nga nating, meron naman yung just the bright weight, pero ang laki ng tiyan, pero kaya pala siya magaan, maliit yung arms niya, yung tinatawag na noodle arms, noodle legs, or yung, di ba may term doon, fat on the
Tofi.
tofi, thin on the outside, fat on the inside.
Fat on the inside.
You have a normal weight. You're not,
Yeah.
your BMI is normal. So but look at their waistline, it's actually very big. So
Yeah.
that's one of the things you should do. Your weight should not be your height. Is half of that should be your waistline or less. So if you are 5 foot, siyempre kailangan ang waistline mo is 2.5 feet. So
Yeah.
ganun ang computation on. Or less. Less is better. So I don't usually use weight. I usually use the waistline as a parameter of health, as well as yung HbA1c, and of course the liver function, beyond creatinine.
Yeah, so those are three important things, no? HbA1c to ensure na your blood sugar ay controlled, na hindi pwedeng dayain, hindi siya madaling dayain because you can actually, it's about average eh. Pero alam mo, Doc Iggy, with my experience pwede pala siyang dayain. You can
Yeah.
still have mean HbA1c of normal, for those people who are eating high carbs but who are fasting long. They fast long and then they eat high carb and then they fast again. So sa mean nila, they can still have a normal HbA1c, but that is very dangerous because every time they do the peaks and troughs, the highs and lows, dun yun nag-generate ng more oxidative radicals na nakakause ng further inflammation. So HbA1c, I hope you are honest with yourself that you had a normal HbA1c, and because you really stayed low carb, yung height to waist to height ratio, kung ano yung height nyo. So in inches, for example, if 60, if 5 foot flat kayo, dapat yung inyong waistline, yung sa pusod banda, dapat nasa 30 lang ha. So hindi pwede 30 on ano ba yan? Normal breathing, halfway breathing, o ano ba yon? Or
Navel.
navel. Pero baka ano yun, sir, baka hindi humihinga yon. Or ano ba? Dapat naka-breathe out or halfway ng breathing.
Kapag hindi mo alam, susukatin ka nung mister mo o misis mo habang hindi mo alam. O yan. Kasi 36 ka pa.
36, pero kung siya yung kung ikaw mismo yung kukuha ay 30 lang, pero habang relax pala nagiging 36.
30 lang ang Wednesday ko.
And of course, our blood markers. So blood markers in liver function test, SGPT, SGOT, they are very simple but it tells you so much. At marami kaming mga pasyente na naka-low carb, sobrang galing sa low carb, pero yung SGPT, SGOT ay merong pagtaas, and you will start questioning. And when we see, meron kaming mga special cases na when we see na tama naman yung mga pinagkakain, but alam nyo ba yung nakikita ko, Doc Iggy, they are still consuming supplements, over-the-counter na mga supplements, na mga kung ano-anong mga bagay, na sabi ko, if it's, you can try to improve on your diet, but if after a month na nandyan pa rin yan, you can try to have an experiment. Kunin mo muna yung lahat ng mga iniinom mong kung ano-anong mga supplements dahil it's the one causing your liver damage.
Can I just mention something about your HbA1c? I had a patient about 1.5 months ago. Medyo mataas yung HbA1c, 5.5, and he was having joint pain. So I told him, go on a diet, lessen your carbs, eat healthy foods. So he came back to me, naging 4.9 yung HbA1c niya.
Okay, that's good.
But here's the thing, his FBS was high. Okay, now, people will say, oh, bakit ganun, Doc? Ano siya naging diabetic? Kasi FBS 10 hours pa, yes, his sugar's high. Now, when I asked him how much weight did he lose, he actually lost too much. So what was happening, their body kasi has to be understood well. If you lose weight too much, you will now use your muscles as source of energy. And it will convert it into sugar. So akala niya, bababa yung HbA1c niya. Pero actually, pag nag-stress siya, tumataas. So when he went on fasting blood sugar, tumaas yung sugar niya.
Yes. It's the stress response. It's the stress hyperglycemia.
And the reason he said he's eating a lot, but when I ask him, he's eating practically all vegetables and no fat. So when you do that, because you tend to eat, you think you're eating a lot, but since low calorie, you actually be undernourished.
Yes. And actually, when they do that, they are eating a lot, but puro vegetables, at puro very magaan na vegetables when it comes to calorie needs. Ang ending niyan, you are losing weight, you're burning your fats, but you're also burning your muscles, and most likely, wala ka sa ketosis. You can still be a sugar burner kahit pa naka-low carb ka. If it's not a low carb, if it's low carb but not high fat, and almost absent of proteins. Because yun yung mga isa sa mga problema They believe in low carb, but they are still afraid of meat. They are still afraid of eating proteins, especially good fats.
Fat, yeah.
So Doc Iggy, may nagtanong dito, ano daw yung for beginners, how's your advice when it comes to paano magsimula or the minimum fasting na for beginners? Would you recommend?
Ganito, why? First, find out why you're doing it. Weight loss, medyo iba advice ko For health, iba rin advice ko. So for health kasi, I'm a little more careful because you're sick. So I would probably try to tell you to try keto first, go slow. for health. Kasi if you have damaged livers or you have diabetes, but for someone who's young and just a bit heavy and wants to lose weight, go ahead, fast. I would even tell you can probably go fasting for 1 meal a day. Go ahead kasi healthy yung adult ka naman. So these things are hindi siya talaga dikahon.
Yes.
And you must try to find a coach who really has a deep understanding of how these hormones play and how yung illness and youth and age come into play. So it's not really a question that I could answer simply.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I would answer the same. That's why even if we started low carb, we now know that it would be best to don't think about fasting first. Let your body tell you you are ready to fast. And that will happen when your body is ready. So lower your inflammation first by stop eating. Okay? Stopping yourself from eating inflammatory foods to begin with. Okay? Remove all of that and then focus more on real nutrient dense foods. But of course, after this one, you will see your body will be appetite corrected and makikita mo, you will now eat only when your body just need it nutritionally. And before you know it, hindi mo lang alam na 1 meal a day ka na lang pala kumakain and sobrang productive mo na and sobra pa yung energy mo at baka hindi mo lang namalayan na nag-exercise ka na and you are doing great already. So those are the things that we wish for you. Kami ni Doc Iggy, together with the other admins, the participants, and of course, yung mga resource speakers natin on the National Low Carb Day on October 2, 2022. We hope to see you all there. Sa mga hindi pa nakapag-register, you can register ahead because limited na lang po yung ating face-to-face na participants. Doc Iggy, can you invite them? Makakita ka ba nila? Kasi marami kang fans dito. Alam nila kung saan ka mahahanap, but gusto nilang malaman if you're gonna be there.
Talaga, may fans ako.
Oo, meron dito. Oh, gusto mo ipakita, kaya lang baka makita nila sa ang hospital ka affiliated.
Low Carb Day, and this is a special event talaga kasi face-to-face. It's going to be big, and I hope it will become the match, the fire that will ignite more people to be aware of low carb and fasting. Pero bang last few words na lang?
Yes po, sir. Yes po, sir. The floor is yours.
To sum it up, if I were just to say it in a few sentences, eat like a hunter. So once in a while you get some fruits, but mostly you will really hunt, and it's fats and proteins. And it's okay to be hungry. Stay hungry to be strong. It's not always you have to be eating every 6 hours or 5 times a day like most Filipinos. And then exercise like a farmer. A farmer sometimes have to chop wood, have to dig holes. Sometimes he just has to water. So, but it's constant movement. It's constant strength and aerobics. So, finally, see your doctor, but make sure your doctor is aware of the new nutrition things like what we are teaching here.
Thank you so much, sir. Yan, yung mga fans mo dito, nandito na. Oh, shout out to Idol. Okay? Manat Lorendo. And okay, of course, si Ma'am Roda na sobrang happy na nakita kanya dito. So, thank you so much po, sir, sa pag-uunlak sa amin. And we hope to see you sa National Low Carb Day. So, again, everyone, sa mga hindi pa nakapag-register, kindly register na po. Sir, picture muna tayo before we end. Smile!
Thank you!
Thank you! Bye-bye po! Maraming salamat! Have a great day! Bye-bye po!